Hi, everybody. It's Stephanie Mo Davis. Welcome to my first YouTube Live. This is going to be a quick one on the call to balance, the clarion call, and the expression of the imbalance that we're being seen, that's being really observed in the public domain, in the collective. Okay. So many of you have heard of the terminology empath or narcissist, and you may have even notice the ways in which or identified that you maybe lie closer to one of those spectrums. Maybe you've been called a narcissist by somebody that you love. Maybe you've been told that you are too sensitive and that you need to create thicker skin. I kind of fall on that end of the spectrum. And for the longest time, I realized that I had a level of feeling and experience that seemed to be deeper and more nuanced than maybe some of the people that I surrounded myself with. Later in life, I found a term called an empath, right? And I thought to myself, I identify as this. I am that. I am an empath. I'm a feeler. I'm a sensitive soul. I feel so profoundly and deeply that sometimes it affects my health and wellness. I feel so profound and deeply that I can also have pattern recognition when other people are feeling or avoiding certain feelings that they have. I do believe this to be true, but what I do believe is that sometimes we can attach to that label without realizing the ways in which it disempowers us. I created a course about 5 years called Empowering Empaths, which was really obviously for me, but also I held it for the world and my clients as well at the time. And it was really at a time when we were trying to emphasize the ways in which we valued empaths, but also the ways in which we coalesced and created echo chambers around the ways in which we had to deal with the repercussions of excessive empathy. So, in this short little brief clip that I'm making here today, I'd like to encourage you, if you haven't already, to first identify, who are you? Do you permit yourself to feel your feelings? Are your feelings an accurate representation, or are there things that are being created within your mind based off of past experience and trauma that are instigating feelings that don't need to exist anymore? And in terms of what's going on within yourself, once you start to identify and clear your own ability to see within yourself, in your own channel, in your own vessel, which requires work, requires introspection, wisdom, facing yourself, healing, purging. Physical symptomology can come up. It's work to do healing on yourself. But once you can do that, you can more accurately see the outside world without it going through the filters of the ways in which you're not integrated. And that's unfortunately what I think we're seeing more than ever, is this accusatory externalization of the ways in which other people are wrong or have wronged you. Again, you see this all the time. I've just realized my spouse is a narcissist, or my boss is a narcissist. And in fact, now we're even starting to witness the proclivity towards the certain businesses and system structures holding narcissism as one of the maybe unconscious ways in which they operate. I'm not saying that there aren't bad people out there and perniciousness doesn't exist. It does. But I think a lot of this behavior can go on unconsciously because it has been unseen and unrecognized. So then what happens is, if something has gone unrecognized, often it builds momentum in that direction, whether it be for the good or for the bad. So my process has been, before I have an accurate representation of what I'm feeling through someone else or what I'm witnessing through the world, let me make sure that it's first my filter, my filter, my camera, my lens is clear. So I'm seeing things accurately. And very often in the beginning, what I was seeing outside as a representation of misjustice had a lot to do with the ways in which I was malaligned with my own authentic self and the ways in which I had attached to feelings that were based off of a traumatic experience instead of the more integrated healing version of that particular experience. So in this video, I kind of called this a call to balance. When anything is in balance, it's always going to do what it needs to do to try to seek a balance. Okay, so if we're very far to the left, something very far to the right is going to be the only thing that unfortunately moves us into a state of balance. This is called polarization, right? So when you're really far in a belief system in one direction, you're going to be very angry at the opposite. And it's harder for these two ends to meet and have empathy, compassion, communication, love for one another because you're not willing to go halfway. So you kind of have to be willing to at least move towards your middle ground so someone else can then make the choice and discern whether they want to meet you there to have these important conversations, to try to understand each other and move forward from a place of how do we remain individuals with belief systems, if that's what you believe in, belief systems. How do we move forward with more peace, more maturity, more integration, and less destruction and catastrophic events that need to happen because we're stuck on our end, you're stuck on your end, and neither one of us are willing to go to the middle to see how we can try to understand each other. What I've discovered is the people who feel most opposite from me, if we're willing to make ends meet and meet in the middle, a lot of the things and fundamental core values are actually not that far off from one another. And in fact, sometimes we're just expressing it differently. We're actually getting fixated on the expression of the belief instead of really the core value. Sometimes the core values are actually a lot more similar than we may think. And very often we find out that, if you're an empath and you've had to develop ways to create boundaries around yourself and protect yourself because you're excessive in your empathy, the potential opposite of you, which would be the narcissist, who's excessive in the, self gratification and seeking and the inability to see other, is excessive for a reason that's maybe kind of similar. Maybe you're both non-integrated and kind of damaged, and your defense mechanisms are just very polar different. It is in my understanding, I'm not saying that psychopaths don't exist, and this is not my wheelhouse or expertise, is this spectrum of mental health conditions and disorders. If you want to know more about that, you definitely want to go to Richard Grannon philosophy or Sam Vaknit. They're both experts in different ways. From different backgrounds who talk about the dynamic of empaths and narcissists and codependents and psychopaths and how these two dynamics interplay with one another. It's really kind of hard to have one without the other, where they would just exist in solitude and there wouldn't be a conflict. Go check them out if you want to know about this. But what I'm kind of realizing is that we all have problems. We all have healing work to do. We could all do better, no matter what your label is. So what needs to be done first is you need to find that balance within yourself and find the ways in which you need to heal so you can at least have these conversations or live a life in a world that is very polarized and chaotic. It's your choice. You can participate in the polarization and separateness and perpetuate the dysfunction and the chaos. But I think underlying that, there's still always a deep yearning and seeking and desire for peace, right? Some people thrive off of chaos, and I understand how it's a profound catalyst towards growth. But at some point, I think that everybody, no matter who you are, seeks to just have peace. So if you want to try to find peace amongst this world, you need to first do the work within yourself so you can relate clearly and see clearly. And usually what happens is you start to develop more of a sense of compassion than some of the more lower, we would say, vibrational heavy emotions such as anger, resentment, hate, I mean, these aren't healthy or emotions that are going to propel you really forward unless you're really willing to just feel it and then move out of it. If you're staying stuck in hatred, you're going to have a really difficult life, and that's going to affect your body at some point. So, emotions move. Feelings they're permeable and they shift and they have the potential to transform quickly. You know that. You don't have to stay stuck in anything, and you should be maturing in that understanding of moments of awe don't last 24 hours a day, and moments of hell don't last 24 hours a day unless we somehow condition ourselves to stay kind of stuck. Life is complex, and you need a more complex, nuanced understanding of the participatory role that you play in your own healing process. And it never stops. You don't have to get addicted to healing. This can happen when the shadow work is like we can get really addicted and just think that like you can't ever enjoy or let loose or have pleasure because you're so addicted to just like, when I heal, I'll feel better. And just don't think of it that way. Don't think of it as having an expected outcome. Just do the work when it comes up, and moving out of that attitude of, if I do this, then therefore this will happen and be better. Because then you're just really saying that I'm not happy as I am. And you keep perpetuating that if I do something else, I'll get happy. And that's kind of the addiction to the materialistic philosophy, is if I get this, I'll be happy. I meet this person, I'll be happy. And, I've definitely fell victim to that as well. It's just a really natural human tendency. But I want to just try to promote more of that spiritual perspective of, take action if you're unhappy, that action that you can take, right? If you hate your job, you've really decided it's not good for you, well, then quit your job and move forward. So it's kind of this balance of, I know when I need to take action to make my life a little better. And I also have the maturity to know that things aren't going to be perfect. And I have to just learn how to flow between these polarities, but always remember what it feels like to be in a state of balance, and kind of try to achieve, when you're starting to move way far in one direction or one emotion, maybe have the wherewithal to at some point notice that this is the practice of self-awareness. You'll start to develop that skill of knowing sooner than later when you start to get off your equilibrium, because you'll feel it, because you've permitted yourself to feel, and you've permitted yourself to go out of balance, and you know what that results in. So it's just a practice of trial and error. So when you realize you're getting off of your center, you start to pinpoint it sooner, and then you have the choice to create a different thought pattern, or literally take action within the world to try to create something that feels more aligned with you. But it's a process, okay? And it starts with you. So the call to balance starts with you, where you can have as clear of a vessel as possible, so you can start to see the world with a little more clarity and compassion. If that's the life that you seek, it's the life I seek. Right? It's not so much I want to change the world, because I don't have the power to literally change everything that I like, but I do have the power in how I perceive the world. And when you are choosing to see more beauty and simple encounters that bring you peace and connecting with the right people, your world looks different than if you're still living and aligning with things that aren't good for you based off of poor choices from your past, when you didn't know yourself. You might have to make some significant changes to get to this place where you can perceive differently. But there's so much power in your perception, because there's a lot going on out there, So instead of trying to take on to change the world, just do the work within yourself to align with what resonates. And maybe what resonates with you now isn't going to be what resonates with you in 5 years, and that's okay. Be willing to take that chance to grow and evolve. You don't have to stay stuck in one identity for your whole entire life. And in fact, you shouldn't. In fact, it's kind of odd when we don't permit people to evolve and grow and change. It's kind of saying, I like you the way you are for me. And I don't want you to change because you're providing something for me that makes me feel good. And when you're different and acting differently and doing things differently and committed to different things that I'm not yet ready to commit to, now I feel comfortable and now you're my problem, right? So commit to you, commit to finding the peace within yourself. It exists within. And then you can start to perceive the world differently and align and attract things that also are committed to this self work to perceive the world the way that you want to perceive it, which is there is profound love that exists amongst this chaos that you are seeing. There is profound connection and resonance and conversations and dialogues happening. People are making decisions that are so incredibly beautiful and transformative and profound. It's just that's not what's being portrayed in the media. So you have to disconnect with those things that you know are seeping, leaching your energy. You have to choose, right? I haven't had a TV in a million years, right? I don't watch TV. You got to be willing to live kind of off the grid a little bit, and maybe you want to kind of dip a toe in to see where everybody's at and what's going on. But when you start to feel that it's consuming your well-being, you got to stop. You got to stop. Go outside and connect with nature and, just talk to people, because often you'll find that the people that you actually talk to in the real world, it appears very different than what you're being seen on TV or in the media or on social media. It's like, wow, everybody says the world is going to hell in a handbasket, but, I'm having really great conversations with my neighbor or, my friend or, the person at the gym that I just met or the grocery attendant. Like, you're like, wow, I actually see a lot of beauty. So keep that within your heart for today. I know I'm keeping it in my heart. There's beauty that exists. You just have to choose what you want to look at and align with and see. Thank you, guys.